So welcome back to the video series. We're talking all about how we can break free from emotional blockers that are getting in the way or they're holding us back. And it's all about understanding how our feelings, our emotions can often be influencing our behaviors and actually impacting. Are we showing up in a resourceful way? Are we not? And what's the impact that that's having on the results that we are actually achieving, whether that's a goal or just generally how we're showing up and experiencing things in the moment. So the first video we had yesterday was really stepping back and going through and understanding how important our thoughts are, the thinking, our focus, what we're holding in our mind, because that has such an important influence on how we feel. Every thought that we have triggers an emotional response or an emotional reaction. So it's important to know it starts with our focus, our thinking. This influences our feelings and our physiology as well. You know, how we actually hold ourselves is very different depending on the feelings, the emotional states that we're in. And ultimately, all of that comes together to determine our behaviors and our actions, and therefore the results that we get and how we are showing up. So today is the first of 3 topics where we're actually looking at some of those feelings that we can be experiencing that can have a real impact on how we behave in terms of, again, whether we're in a resourceful or unresourceful state. So the first one I want to be sharing is all about overwhelm, because when we're overwhelmed, we're not going to be as effective as when we have clarity and focus. So understanding what's really going on kind of under here, behind the scenes, what we're experiencing, what we're going through with overwhelm is important to help us find our way in terms of helping us get out of overwhelm and back to being focused and, motivated, productive, whatever it is that we need to get back into to keep us on track. So quite simply, when we're experiencing overwhelm, it's that everything has gotten too much. We're kind of swamped with, maybe it's tasks that we need to get done with work, expectations that we're building up, or it's just huge to-do lists that it's all too much for us. We can't really process that level of information. So I know I experience this. I do get myself into states of overwhelm. I know now how to get myself out, but it doesn't mean that I don't experience it. I experience it a lot less, I will say. But at work, for example, I used to experience massive overwhelm where there was this constant need for everything to be urgent. Everything needed to be done right now. Everything had to be done by close of business today or tomorrow. And there was a lot of expectation then. There's a lot of deliverables. There's a lot of projects. There's also just generally the work that you need to be doing. If you're managing teams, you're managing people. And that doesn't even bring into what it is that you want to be doing in that day. Maybe the exercises you're trying to work in, the personal development, maybe the study courses that you're also working on. It can be a lot. I was juggling all of my NLP studies whilst working full time and trying to keep up an exercise routine, all of this. And there are times where we can slip and kind of fall into or go bogged down into overwhelm. And what's really happening is that we just suddenly group everything together and you can't see all of the individual tasks for what they are. It just becomes this huge lump. And the level of information that's there, it's too big picture, it's too abstract. A bit like if you're on top of a tall building in these cities that you might be visiting and you look down and you just see the whole city there, but you can't actually see the detail. You can't see individual little bits, maybe the buildings or people on the street. It just looks like this vast, massive land and buildings and roads or rivers, wherever it is that you are. And this is the challenge with overwhelm. That's where we become too swamped because we're too high up, we're too abstract, and we're looking at everything in one go. So it's really important when we're thinking about overwhelm. I have found that I need to be getting more specific. I need to start grouping things together to go down into the detail, because you can't be overwhelmed about one thing. We're overwhelmed when we're thinking about maybe 1,000,001 different things all together. So by chunking down into more specifics and detail of what it is that's really going on for you, that overwhelm kind of fades away. It floats away because you're able to get a lot more focus and a lot more clarity on what actually needs to be done, or what are you actually, all the different thoughts that are clouding your mind. So what I wanted to cover here is, what are some of the things that we can do to get out of that state? Because when I'm overwhelmed, there's a lot of confusion that's often going on for me, because I'm trying to often juggle too many different things. I'm flip-flopping around, and therefore nothing's getting completed. And it's like I'm spinning a million plates and nothing's getting done. Or I just feel completely stuck and I don't even know what plate to pick up and start working on. So it's just not effective. So let's talk about some of the things that we can actually do to get away from that and get back into our resourceful state with focus, with clarity, where we're thinking about all of the things that we do want to get done. So the first step, and the most important, is that piece around getting more specific. You need to get out of the big picture and down into the detail. So if it's a number of thoughts that are in your mind, writing those thoughts down. What is it that's going on that's really making you feel like there's too much in your mind, you're feeling swamped? Or if it's different tasks, say at work or at home, or juggling work and home, what are all the things that you need to get done? Just brain dump it, because once it's out of here and we can see it on paper, we've got the detail that we need to be able to take action. So at that point, you maybe want to go and have a walk, have a glass of water, grab a tea or a coffee, and just know that all of that information is out and you can come back with a fresh mind. Because I find the next best kind of step really here is to start going into categorization, because I need to start thinking about, how do I take action? And a lot of people use different ways to categorize what they need to work on depending on what it is. If I'm focusing on things that are work-based, even personal actually, this works the same, is that I start thinking about what are the things that are urgent. So they really do have a time-bound element to them in the next 48 hours, 72 hours, depending on how big the project is. What is it that needs to be worked on and completed in, say, the next 3 days? All of that written out, because they're going to be probably your big ticket items that you need to focus your attention on. So understanding that list. Next is then thinking about, what are some of my quick wins? What could I, if I just sat down and spent half an hour at the end of the day or mid-afternoon, what are the things that I could very quickly tick off and just get done? Maybe it's paying the bill, the phone bill, the electricity bill, or maybe it's quickly running to the shop to grab some more eggs, whatever that might be. What are the quick wins that you can work through and just get done? The next topic that I then look at is, what is it that actually I'm holding on to that I could delegate? And that might be delegating to people in your team at work. Maybe actually it's work that you could ask for support from a colleague. Maybe at home, it's, can you reach out to your partner or a friend that could actually help out? Or are these things that maybe you could actually hire some help to do, depending on what those are? But looking at things that you have on your list that really could be done by somebody else to alleviate that stress. And then you need to do the process of delegating. The next topic is then thinking about, what are the things that I need to get done, but they probably can be pushed back a few days, maybe even next week or next month. But I'm holding them in my mind because they're on this to-do list that I need to do. Now, I would often just think about, when do they need to get done? But I got shared a great hack with this from my coach this week, when I was starting to think about, all these things that are going on, how do I actually prioritize? And the recommendation that she gave me was that when you actually say it is for next week or it's for next month, will you actually schedule it? So you put it in your diary as if it's a meeting on a day at a particular time, however long you think will be required for that task, and you actually schedule it, because then you don't need to think about anymore, when will I get round to it? It's in the diary, it's scheduled. And that goes into the process I've been reading a lot about, so I might share something in the next week or so around time blocking, rather than utilizing just endless to-do lists. So it's a good one. So at this point, you've got all of the things that are really urgent, say the next 3 days that need to get done. What are some of the quick wins that I could tick off maybe that day that would just take a few moments to get done? What is it that I can delegate? What do I not need to be really keeping on my to-do list that I might have been unnecessarily holding on to? What can I pass on? And then the fourth one there was, what is it that I can schedule for a time in the future, but putting it in the diary so that you know you've already allocated time to come back to it. And then from there, if you've looked at all of that, you might then end up with a few things left on the list. And then the question really is that just busy work? Does it really need to get done? Or do you then need to go back and recategorize it into those 4 categories that you just listed off before? So that's how I go through a process of really kind of working through how am I going to allocate my time based on all of the things that I've got that's getting me away from all of that overwhelm with too many things to do. So really, it can sometimes be hard to take a step back from this, but with discipline and focusing on the end result, that this is going to help you take action, it really is an important step to do. So the next thing that I always want to highlight with overwhelm is sometimes there are things that are just too big. Maybe when you're looking at all of those tasks, there are things that maybe are unrealistic in terms of the expectations that are being placed there. Maybe there are things that you just can't do alone, or maybe there are some bigger challenges that are really contributing to those feelings of overwhelm that you might want to work through with somebody else. So something to always consider is there is nothing wrong with sometimes just asking for help from colleagues, from managers, from friends, from coaches, people that you're surrounded with, to really get the support that you need in order to help you get back into that resourceful state that's going to enable you to take action and therefore get the results that are going to keep you on track. So a really important aspect is just to think about that. Now, talking to someone at work, for example, can be really important if you're feeling like there's too much pressure, maybe the expectations on when things get done, how much can get done. Sometimes we need to be thinking about what are those boundaries that we've got in place in terms of the time that we actually have. If we're too overwhelmed, there's too much going on and we're not able to get out of that state, that's when it can lead into a lot more things such as anxiety, stress, and burnout. And actually, a lot can be done if sometimes we just talk to somebody and really start thinking about what is it that's going to help me in overcoming the challenges that I'm facing at the moment. I worked with a client, for example, recently who realized that she was having a lot of overwhelm and stress and anxiety because she needed to be, or she felt she needed to be, on all the time, people constantly connecting with her, reaching out. You know, we've ended up in a world where we've got Zoom, we've got phone calls, we've got WhatsApps, we've got Slack, we've got Jabber, we've got email, instant messaging services, whatever it is, all these million platforms that we're using in personal life and at work that we are constantly being connected to. So if we're trying to work on some projects or trying to get some things done, but then we've got emails popping up, we've got Zoom calls coming in, we've got instant messages popping up, that can really distract our thinking and leave us in that state of, well, nothing is getting done. There's too much on my plate. So simply taking an action, for example, like closing down that instant messaging, closing down the email, whilst you dedicate an hour, say, working on something, can really, really make a difference. So it's all about not feeling like we're juggling spinning a million plates above us, but we're able to regain our focus, regain our clarity on what I need to get done and how I get myself out of that overwhelm. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I'd love to share, hear your experiences. What are some of the things that you've been doing in terms of helping you getting out of overwhelm? What is it like when you're experiencing that overwhelm? And what are some of the things that you can do to get away from that feeling and get you back into that resourceful state? Please share your comments, please share your questions, and I look forward to sharing the next video tomorrow where we're going to be looking at what is it that we can do when we're experiencing anxiety. So have a great day and catch up soon.